not a sermon that goes on in the church. We want to have a Vaishnava Sangha. And in a Vaishnava Sangha, it's not that one person is better than another. The Vaishnavas just live to serve. And the Vaishnavas will never think that they're better than someone else. But in a Vaishnava Sangha, one person may take the service of speaking. Another Vaishnavas may take the service of asking questions. That's very good service. Or of listening. That's a third-class service, but it's also a service too. So for a relationship to be deep, some confidentiality is required. Rupa Goswami describes this in Upadeshamrita. He says that Guyam Akyati Pritchati. Should have something Guyam, something confidential to speak about. And my Guru Maharaj, he used to say that now is the time in ISKCON that we should go a little deeper. We've heard a lot about how we're not our bodies. We've heard a lot about reincarnation and vegetarianism. And those are important subjects. And it's not that we're beyond them. But at the same time, we should show that we have everything in our society. So it should be something of interest to each other. Otherwise, how can you have a relationship? That's what Guyam means. And it has to be something which is relevant for each other. So I chose as a discussion one of my very favorite chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the first chapter of the Gita, which is a chapter that most people kind of overlook. Krishna doesn't even say anything in it. We may think that what's the value of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? But it's an obvious point that the first chapter is the foundation for the whole book. And moreover, if we contemplate the matter, we can see the Bhagavad Gita as the foundation of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Now, if some of you are a little well-read, a little astute, you may wonder why that is. Why particularly the Bhagavad Gita? Of course, we say that Srimad Bhagavatam, Pramanam Amalam, Vaishnavanam Priyam, that's the literature which is the most pleasing to the devotees, and is the most important literature. But at the same time, the Bhagavad Gita has a very intimate relationship with Gaudiya Vaishnavism. What is that relationship? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not mentioned in the entire book. Hare Krishna Mahamantra is not given in the entire book. Why Bhagavad Gita? Why not Mahabharat, or Ramayana, or some of the Puranas, or some other literatures? Why in particular Bhagavad Gita? So what relevance does it have in Gaudiya Vaishnavism? And then what relevance does it have for me today? So this first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, I consider to be the most relevant chapter in the whole book for myself. Our acharyas have described this chapter as being Vishad Yoga. So in this retreat, we want to say something about generosity. And if we contemplate the matter, this Bhagavad Gita gives us a key. This first chapter of Bhagavad Gita gives us a key. What is the cause of generosity? And what is it that stops generosity? A very interesting subject matter. Maybe I should start with telling you something very personal, if you don't mind. When I was about 8 years old, my mother tried to commit suicide. She took a gun and put it to her heart. She was in a very distressed situation. I grew up a lot. I was an 8-year-old boy at the time. And I grew up thinking a lot about suicide. Not for myself, but just as a principle. And living in this world, even amongst the devotees, I've had a couple devotee friends who committed suicide over the years. And you may know, they've done statistics. In America, the largest cause of death for teenagers is suicide. It's a very relevant thing for us today. We may say, well, we're taking shelter of Indian philosophy. It's a little different. But there's one psychology professor named Doya Sindhu. He's a professor at the University of Louisiana in the United States. And he once said that India has become the suicide capital of the world after studying the rates of suicide all over the world, he came to that conclusion that after spending 5 months in India, he found that the suicide rate in India was the greatest in the world per person. In the year 2009, there were 127,151 persons who committed suicide in India. In the last 30 years, suicides amongst young people have risen 300%. It's a very, very relevant subject matter. But suicide is also a very interesting subject matter. Some of the greatest writers and thinkers in the world have approached it because there's something very fascinating about someone who just doesn't want to keep this life anymore. They can't tolerate living here anymore. So I became interested further in this subject matter when a few years ago when one devotee that we were counseling a little, she confided in my wife and I privately something very shocking. Although she was is a very extremely wealthy person living in a very wealthy home in Delhi, India, she wanted to commit suicide. And she was asking me some things about it. So we were contemplating then, does the Bhagavad Gita have anything to say about suicide? So I'd like to say something about that, and about this first chapter and its relevance to Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's kind of a long, strange, curvy, winding path. If you want to try to understand the whole thing, you'll have to come for each class, because we're going to go through different things at different times. We'd also like to say something about this Vishad Yoga, or this yoga of lamentation, and how it's relevant for us, how it's the basis of the Bhagavad Gita, how it's the basis of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and how there is a message in Bhagavad Gita about suicide. And here in this seminar, in this retreat, we'd also like to say something about generosity and how this Vishad Yoga is very intimately connected with that. Because we all hear that devotees are like Kalpabriksha trees, they're very merciful, they're very kind. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Mahabharat avatar. But sometimes I don't feel so generous, sometimes I don't feel so compassionate. So we'd like to understand something about the source of compassion and what it is that blocks and inhibits compassion. And all that's given in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the 21st verse, Arjuna, he famously tells Krishna, Senayor ubayor madhye, Ratam stapaya me chuta, hey Krishna, chalo, move the chariot. Arjuna gives them instruction, please take this chariot in between because I want to see Karamahasa, Yodavyam Asman Ranasamudyame. I want to see who's the enemy. Bhagavad Gita is very important. It's a literal history, but we also understand it has some allegorical meaning as well. In the sense that we want Krishna to be in charge of our life. We want to surrender to him. We want Krishna to be the driver of our chariot. And so for that, then we have to understand what is the battle in this life. And who's the enemy? That's the first thing. Who's the enemy? So then Arjuna, he tells that to Krishna. And in text 24, Sanjaya says, Evam ukto rishikesho gurukeshena bharata senayorubayor madhye stapayatva ritotama. At that time, Krishna took that chariot in the midst of both parties. Prabhupada writes in his purport, he says that the word Rishikesh is mentioned here in the verse because Krishna is the director of the senses, of the mind, and he's the director of every living entity. So we want Krishna to be the driver of our chariot. He says that Krishna could understand Arjuna's purpose in placing the chariot in the midst of both armies. And so he did so. And then he spoke as follows, the next verse. Bhishma Drona Pramukhata Sarvesham Jamayikshitam Uvacha Partapashyaitam Samatetam Kuruniti. And in the midst of the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other chieftains, Sanjaya relates that Krishna said, he pointed at both armies, and he said, behold, all the Kurus here. Well, the Kuru dynasty indicates both assemblies, both different armies. Prabhupada, in the purport, he says, what did Krishna mean when he told Arjuna to behold the Kurus? Did Arjuna want to stop there and not fight? Krishna never expected such things from the son of his aunt Pritha. The mind of Arjuna was thus predicted by the Lord in friendly joking. So Krishna understood what problem Arjuna is about to have. Krishna took him in between both armies, and he waved his hand at both armies. He said, here's the enemy, Arjuna. And then looking in those armies, text 26 describes, Tata pasyat stitan parta pitrun atta pitamaham acharjan matulan bratan putran potran sikims tata swasuran soridas chaiva senayor ubayor api. There Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers. When Arjuna saw that, he became overwhelmed with compassion. And Arjuna told Krishna, Jusvemam swajanam Krishna, yuyutsam samupashtitam, siddhanti mamagatrani mukam cha parishyati. He said that, Krishna, something's happening to me. He said, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. Vepatush chasharire me romaharshas chajayate gandaivam shamshate hastat tvakchaiva pradidayate. My whole body's trembling, my hair is standing on end, my bow gandaiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. Text 30. Nachasoknyam avashta tum brahmataiva chame manaha nimitani chapashyami viparitani keshava. He told Krishna, I'm now unable to stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself, and my mind is reeling. All that I see is causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that by pointing out that Krishna is the killer of the Keshi demon. He's requesting Krishna that you should please kill these demons of doubt in my heart. So what's happening at this point? We should analyze this in a deep way. Arjuna is lamenting. What is the cause of his lamentation? His identification with both sides. His upadis, his designation, is what's causing him lamentation. If we consider it, our identification of ourself, our material identification, is based on a conglomerate of the opinions of many, many different people around us. Let's take a small child as an example. A baby girl is born. And when that child comes out of the womb, it has no conception of identity or of self. The first conception, the Bhagavatam, the Vedic literatures describe, is anamoya. I am hungry. That's who I am. That's my identity. And then a little later, more identity comes. And those identities come from other persons. This is my mother. This is my father. They love me. We get some identity from the presence of those persons, and they give us different names. You're my daughter. You're a girl. Oh, I'm a girl. Oh, I didn't know that. And then later on, we become a student, and that's who I am. And then a young girl, maybe when she's about 12, 14, I don't know these days, she becomes a goddess. And all the boys follow her around everywhere like this, and they offer flowers to her feet, and they fall down before her. And she has a new kind of understanding of herself. I'm a beautiful girl. And she buys clothes off the rack to give her a sense of identity. I am a cool girl. I like Levi's jeans. I like shorts. I like bikinis. I like leather clothes. It's all part of my identity. And it all has to do with other people around me. My identity is based on my parents. It's based on my friends. It's based on my teachers. if 10 people say something about me, then I'll think, oh, that must be true. Because I'm always looking, who am I? What is my identity? If everybody says, wow, that was a really good class, then I'll think, yes, that's me. That's my identity. I'm a person who gives a good class. But it's not me. So that girl, as she grows up, she gets more and more identities. This is my friend. This is my enemy. And all these identities are based on other persons. Then this is my boyfriend. And he loves me. And then this is my husband. I'm a wife. You can't be a wife unless you have a husband. You can't be a student unless you have a teacher. You can't be a child unless you have a mother. This is my husband. And then this is my baby. I'm a mother. But that identity of being a mother is relative. It's relative to the existence of that being in the body of that baby. If the baby dies, then what happens to the mother? She laments, and she doesn't just lament for the loss of the baby. She's lamenting because she's losing part of her own identity. She's having an existential crisis. Because our identity is based upon everyone around us. And this is Arjuna's problem. How can I kill my grandfather? Then how can I be a grandson? How can I kill my teacher and still be a student? How can I kill my friends, my cousins, my brothers, and still have my identity? So these upadhis are a source of great bewilderment. And as a result of this, Arjuna begins to lament. And he says, I can't stand here any longer. Krishna said, you're here, Arjuna, to do my service. To do what I've told you to do. But then Arjuna says, I can't stand here any longer. I'm lamenting. This lamentation is getting in the way of my service to you. Arjuna, as a devotee, is meant to give mercy to other personalities. The Vaishnavas and the Guru are known as Krishna Kripa Shrimurti. They're the embodiment of mercy of Krishna. When Krishna manifests his mercy, he does that through the devotees. And therefore it's described that Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Hoya Sadhu Sangha. That the birthplace of Krishna Bhakti is Sadhu Sangha. This is how Krishna gives his mercy. But Arjuna now can't do his duty. He can't give mercy to other people because he's becoming selfish, because he's completely absorbed in his own identity. And he's thinking, I'm going to lose part of my identity if I fight against these other persons. So he says, I can't stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself. I'm forgetting I'm a spirit soul. I'm forgetting I'm a servant of Krishna. My mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune. I don't see any good in anything. And these are all symptoms of persons who are suicidal. They don't see anything good in the world. Everything is bad. They're forgetting themselves. They're not understanding they're a spirit soul. And they can't stand here any longer. They want to go. Prabhupada writes in his purport, a wonderful purport, due to his impatience, practically every word is a sutra in his purport. Due to his impatience, Arjuna was unable to stay in the battlefield. And he was forgetting himself on account of this weakness of his mind. Excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence. Bhayam dvitiya abhinivesita shat, Bhagavatam 11.2.37. Such fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium take place in persons who are too affected by material conditions. Arjuna envisioned only painful reverses in the battlefield. He would not be happy even by gaining victory over the foe. He couldn't see any kind of happiness in this. How am I going to be happy if I kill my grandfather Bhishmadev? How am I going to be happy if I kill the sons of my uncle Dronacharya, who are my cousin brothers? How am I going to be happy if I kill my guru Dronacharya? How am I going to be happy if I kill my friend Ashvatthama? He couldn't see. All that he could see was pain. The words nimittani viparitani are significant. When a man sees only frustration in his expectations, he thinks, why am I here? Everyone is interested in himself and his own welfare. No one is interested in the Supreme Self. Arjuna is showing ignorance of his real self-interest by Krishna's will. One's real self-interest lies in Vishnu or Krishna. The conditioned soul forgets this and therefore suffers material pains. Arjuna thought that his victory in the battle would only be a cause of lamentation for him. It's a beautiful study in the causes of lamentation, of depression, and of suicide. And it's the basis of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So then Arjuna, he tells Krishna, Nachashrayo nupashyami hatvasvadanamahave. Nachashrayo, I don't see anything auspicious in this. Nakankshe vijayam Krishna nacharajam sukhanicha. Nor do I desire any victory, any kingdom or happiness. So at this point in this chapter, Arjuna begins preaching to Krishna. He begins speaking philosophy to him. And he says many different things. It's a very involved subject matter. We're just going to touch on little bits of it. The first thing that he tells Krishna, he says, Krishna, you should understand about sin. Right? Because that's what religion is all about, isn't it? We should understand what is sinful and what is pious. And that's the crisis here. And Arjuna is telling Krishna, how can I kill them? It will be a great sin on my part. These persons are my superiors. Bhishma Dev, Dronacharya. How can I fight and kill them? It's not Vedic culture. It's a very, very sinful thing. It's something very much against Vedic culture. To fight and to argue with your superiors. Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport, in the second chapter, he says that superiors should not be offered even a verbal argument. You shouldn't disagree with some superiors. And here Arjuna is being put in a situation where he's supposed to fight and kill them. Arjuna tells him, he says, moreover, the family will become degraded. Because this is the business of the of Varnashram Dharma, this is the business of Smriti Shastra, to promote family and to have some good foundation of family. It's a good thing. Arjuna's giving some very good arguments to Krishna. This will be very, very sinful. This is opposed to real religion. And then he gives another argument. He says that women will become polluted. It's very, very important that women maintain their purity in Varnashram society. He says then, if the women become polluted, then we'll have Varna Sankara. We'll have unwanted children. Again, this is the basis of Varnashram Dharma and Smriti Shastra. To have good children. To have good children is the purpose of every community. And then he tells Krishna, he says, so then if we have Varna Sankara, what will happen after that? He says that the community and welfare projects will be devastated. We won't be able to come together as a community because the community is based on children. The community is based on good children, which are based on pure wives. So if the wives of the ladies become contaminated and degraded, then we'll have Varna Sankara. And from Varna Sankara, the community and welfare projects will be devastated. So how then will he saying to Krishna, will we take care of other people? Because it's very important. In Mahabharat, there's huge sections describing the glories of giving charity, the importance of giving grains, helping hungry people. And this is a very important thing. And Krishna is telling this to Arjuna, that if I kill all these people, then all these bad things are going to happen. This is irreligious. It's very, very bad. He says that those people who destroy the family traditions, who destroy Varnashram Dharma, they dwell always in hell. Krishna, how can you tell me to do this? It's completely opposed to religion. And then finally he says, and the other reason, I'm not selfish. I don't want anything for myself. I don't want any happiness for myself. I don't want this kingdom. I don't want this. These are very good arguments. that Arjuna is giving. They're very religious arguments, and Krishna doesn't accept them. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in Sajjana Toshani, he describes 3 different types of generosity, 3 different types of welfare. Deha Sambandini, Sambandini Dvaya, Mana Sambandini Dvaya, and Atma Sambandini Dvaya. Or kindness, mercy to the material body, kindness to the mind, and kindness to the soul. So Bhaktivinoda, he says in Chaitanya Sikshamrita, he encourages that everyone should do welfare activities. Maharaj was speaking very nicely this morning about that. It's a very important thing for grihastas, otherwise they become selfish. They're gathering wealth, they should give that wealth, and they should help other people. In Chaitanya Sikshamrita, Bhaktivinoda describes many different ways you can do that. He says you can plant trees next to the road. We live in Jagannath Puri, and between Bhubaneswar and Jagannath Puri, the road was lined, note the word was lined with huge trees which were over 500 years old, some of which they say were planted by Maharaj Prataparudra at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the purpose of planting those trees was to give shade to the yatris, the pilgrims who are coming to Jagannath Puri. Similarly, if you go on that road, there are many water tanks. There are places, wells, where you can get drinking water. There's places you can take a bath because the weather is quite often very hot. So these are different acts of kindness to the material body. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said we can feed a poor person. If it's very cold, we may give them a blanket. We may give them a place to stay. And then he says, but better than that is manadoya. Manadoya means some kindness to the mind. And so we want to give some education. We want to think about the future of our community. So we want to emphasize education for the children. We want to give free books, buy computers for the school. And that's a very good type of generosity. But Bhaktivinoda says that both that dehadoya and the manadoya, just in and of themselves, is not fully satisfying. We need to have atmadoya. Atmadoya means kindness to the soul. Now you may question, what is the purpose, what is the reason for Vedic literature encouraging people to feed hungry people, to give some clothing to someone who's cold, to plant trees and make wells and like that. And Bhaktivinoda gives a nice description of this. He says that by doing that activity, you'll get some karma unmukhi sukriti. You'll get some pious activities, which are very good for Varnashram Dharma. He said, but if one day, amongst the thousands of people who may be going to Puri and sitting underneath those trees that you planted and getting some shade, you get some mundane piety from that. He said, if one day a pure Vaishnava comes, and the pure Vaishnava sits there, just one Vaishnava, then you get bhakti unmukhi sukriti. You get a different kind of sukriti, which leads to bhakti. And he says it's for this reason that these other types of charity are recommended. This dehadoya, or charity to the body, of manadoya, you get some education. Maybe one of those students may become a great Vaishnava, and you'll get some great benefit from that. But the best type of doya is atmadoya, because it's direct, and your consciousness is very easily absorbed in that. So Arjuna, he's saying that if I kill all these other people, then these different types of doya, they'll stop. This deha doya, this mana doya will stop. And then how will society go on? We have to have acts of kindness. We have to have acts of generosity. That's the purpose of community. That's the purpose of life, according to Mahabharat, according to Smriti Shastra. To be generous, to help other people. So then Arjuna tells Krishna, I can't fight.